What's going on, guys? Hopefully you're having a good morning so far. Good Wednesday if you're over in Europe or Asia. Hopefully you've had a good day. Halfway through the week, and Bitcoin is now setting up for, I guess you could say, exactly what I was hoping for yesterday. We'll talk about Bitcoin. I think right now we're potentially getting back to a Bitcoin-dominated market, back to kind of what has been commonplace really up until, I guess you could say, the beginning of July, right? Which is whenever Bitcoin moves up, that just dominates all the action. You can think about it ever since April 1st. Look at how your alts have done. Ever since April 1st, look at how Bitcoin has done, right? And I'm not saying that we're ready to smash to 13K or ready to smash 12K or ready to smash all-time high. I'm just saying, yesterday the update and the outlook was, right, price being able to be above 96.50 was a big level for me. It was kind of a big condition, a big checkbox, if you want to think about it like that, right? Why was that important, and why is it still important? I think my view here, can never find the icon I want, right? If you look back at the range low or the structure we've been in now for a month, almost a month and a half, right? Primarily, we're trading between 9,600 and 13K. Obviously, we were below it for about 2 days, but I think that's why reclaiming it, I think, even adds more significance, right? So whenever price breaks out of the range, whether it's to the upside, obviously that would be a very positive sign, or to the downside, right? That's usually a pretty negative sign, right? This is the range we're playing in. That's the structure. A breakout changes that. You can think about it like when price kind of reclaims this range, it's a sign of strength, I think. Now, sure, this could nuke on to new lows, whatever it is. But the view of yesterday and now leading into today, as I'm going to cover, right, we have reclaimed, right, just like we did last time. Now, it clearly hasn't had just an explosive move up like we did last time, but I think things look good. And so far, it's already $200 or $300 in the right direction, right? So I'm going to cover Bitcoin today. We're kind of going back to Bitcoin's really going to be the primary focus. And it's only because, if you look across, as I mentioned yesterday with ADA, with EOS, and with all these other ones, right, we had an alt window last week. It allowed for a 10 or 15% swing with EOS and allowed for a 7 or 8% swing with ADA. And that's it, right? You have to just understand that whenever Bitcoin starts moving up, whenever Bitcoin starts to look more bullish, not only does Bitcoin moving up hurt alts, right, because they're priced in Bitcoin, but it also sucks liquidity out of the system. And if you're wondering, what does that mean? Think about it as, right, Bitcoin going up, those alts get hurt because they're priced in Bitcoin. So even if they stay the same, they get hurt, right, because Bitcoin's now worth more, just from a fractional kind of how they're quoted standpoint. Add in the fact that when Bitcoin is moving up or looks more bullish or whatever it might be, and people are also incentivized to hold more Bitcoin, since assets are priced in Bitcoin and Bitcoin is all of the liquidity, right? It's kind of a double effect of, right, people are selling their alts or whatever it is, or not buying because they want to be in Bitcoin. And then also, if there's less liquidity in those alts because people aren't buying them or they're selling out of the alt to get into Bitcoin, it kind of exacerbates that effect, right? I guess you could really say it's to the upside as well. When alts start moving, right, I guess that probably doesn't play a role. It's really just to the downside of alts, right? And so when we looked at alts yesterday, and my note yesterday in the email and the video, right, talking about, I don't want to play these anymore. It was a fun swing. I have to recognize that it's a window, right? EOS and ADA both imagine that they actually probably get back to where we started last week. So it was a nice short-term swing. I know that for alt traders right now, they're like, oh man, this is brutal. It was only like a 10 or 15% move. You just kind of have to take what the market is giving in terms of alts. It's not, it's still not a buy and forget about it and wake up to a 2x in 2 weeks market. It's not an alt season market. I do think there's going to be alt windows, but primarily today and probably for the rest of the week, I imagine the focus is going to be on Bitcoin. Obviously, that could change, right? If Bitcoin just decides to nuke, that could change. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'll talk about Bitcoin outlook. I think that's the most important. I'm not really going to cover too many alt shorts. If there is one that I'm looking at, I would say it has to be Tron. I just generally stay away from shorting because I know most people that watch these and most traders honestly just don't short and don't like playing with margin or shouldn't be playing with margin. But I will talk about Tron. If there's one major alt that I do like as a short or hedge or whatever it might be, I think it is Tron. So I'll talk about that one. If it interests you, great. If it's helpful information, great. If it's not in your strategy or not in your comfort zone or whatever it is, if there's ever anything that I cover and you're not comfortable doing it, obviously don't do it, right? None of this is advice. I'm just kind of sharing my outlook that hopefully helps you, gives you an edge, and this week Bitcoin has. Right, so looking at Bitcoin, outlook for today, the biggest thing, right, 96.50, previous range low. I'm going to make these yellow again so I can see them. Right, previous range low, described at the beginning of the video as, this is the lowest price has been. So whenever we lose the range, obviously that's bearish, but if we can reclaim it, you can think about it as either we're back in the range, so you can say, okay, now we're back to a pretty cheap Bitcoin, Bitcoin's ranging, or you can think of it as, okay, the level was lost, which is generally bearish, or it's not positive, right? That support was broken. But if immediately after price can reclaim that, that's actually quite strong, right? That's kind of a show of strength of price breaking down here, coming back up to retest resistance, and then immediately being able to kind of reclaim that support. So that's still why I think 96.50 is a big focus. It doesn't mean we're going to moon tomorrow or this week or whatever it is, but I do still like being long Bitcoin from the idea yesterday, right? Any 4-hour closes above 96.50 and I'm long, right? Exact same thing to the downside. That's also how I'm managing risk. So before I even talk about kind of where I'm thinking this goes, because I do think it goes to 10.9 or possibly higher, looking like 11.3, 11.9, I want to think about downside really, really quick, because I imagine there's quite a few people that probably jumped in the long yesterday or understood the outlook and wanted to get long, whatever it is, right? So hopefully you're sitting in a nice $300, $400 profit position. Even if you're not and you're thinking about, okay, does buying here make sense or should I be long Bitcoin, whatever it is, this is how I want to think about managing risk. Take it or leave it. Obviously, everyone has a different system. But as I look at Bitcoin here, right, as long as now we're back in the range, this is just the rule that I really always follow in a range. While we're in the range, I want to respect the range. And what I mean by that is as long as price continue, I don't even care if it drifts all the way back down to 96.50. Obviously, I wouldn't be excited about it, but I wouldn't care. If price, as long as we're having now daily closes above this 96.50, right, I was operating on 4-hour, and now I'm going to move to daily since it looks like we're going to have a nice move here. As long as we're closing above this 96.50, I'm just going to have to assume that I want to be positioned long. And that doesn't mean that the trade has to work out, right? Like I said, it doesn't mean it has to go to target or it has to go to new ties or whatever it is. But since we have reclaimed this structure of this was previous support, previous range support, right? And the last reclaim worked out quite nice. As long as we're trading above this area, I don't care if price dips down to 9,600, right? I don't care if we rocket straight up, whatever it is. The way that it would kind of determine, okay, I probably don't want to be long. This was maybe just a fake out. It looks like we're actually headed to new lows, right? How do you know where you're wrong? I think as opposed to just trying to say, I want to only risk 2%, or I only want to risk, $500, whatever trade size you're playing, right? So my thought process is I don't want to be in a position when I'm wrong, and I want to make money when I'm right, right? So now that we've reclaimed the range, I am actually still short-term bullish, medium-term bullish, I would say as well. As long as price is still respecting now the structure of we've reclaimed the range, we've reclaimed this support as well, as long as this area acts as support, right, I wouldn't be wrong. Now, if I'm wrong and we start closing below here, the reason I wouldn't want to be long, right, if we get down here is because, okay, we've actually lost this support again. We're probably going to head down to 88, 84. Right? So that's still kind of my thought process for Bitcoin. I think it's today just adds more conviction. I like it a lot. Where I'm looking at for targets, because we didn't cover this as much yesterday, but really outlook to the upside for Bitcoin, now that I've kind of covered downside, is this. Right now, price is at resistance, right? A very short-term resistance. Right? Call it like 10.9, 10.8. You can think about I've had these marked, right? 10.9 was our resistance. 10.9 has been our resistance for these previous kind of two pushes up, right? Two pushes up, right? Stopped both times at 10.9. Almost the exact same structure is right here, right? So if you think about what we have one push up in the 10.9, sell off. Another push up in the exact same level, sell off, right? So almost the exact same structure, just on a smaller time frame. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, right? And it's happening right around here. Call it 10.1, call it 10K. So just thinking about this smaller structure and as it relates to the other one, right? Price right now, you could say it's at resistance. I'm not thinking this is like the strongest resistance or the swing is still relatively small that I think I'm on the right side of it. I don't really want to jump out of this yet. But you can think about the structure like this. We've had two tests of this exact same level. They were both happened relatively close to each other, right? We had one test of this level followed by another one just like a day later. Right, so price pushes up into this level, gets denied. Right, price pushes up into the exact same level, gets denied again. So our third test of this level, I do think that this level is weaker. Right here at 10.1, 10.2. And it's really the reason that if we do start, especially if we start trading above here, right, and we start to attack 10.9, 11K, right, which is my target for the trade. For anyone that missed the setup yesterday or is still thinking about it, before I get too many lines in the chart, right, anything above 96.50, even a sloppy entry, I think still looks really good. Like 98, 97, whatever it might be. Targeting these two swing highs, right, are resistance areas before kind of the sell-off. So if I now look at this smaller structure, which I think is very similar to the bigger one, I think the chances that we break this level here are higher now, as we've just pushed up into this level a third time in like 5 days, so like a third time in a week. The exact same resistance area is being tested. We also consolidated here and traded in a very tight range for a few days. I don't think that the one move we have is just going to be a small 3% move. I just don't. Generally, as we look back to periods of time where Bitcoin traded in a very tight range, we've barely had it, I guess, ever since maybe even April. The closest thing I guess I could see on the chart of us trading in like a really tight range, I guess this is maybe similar. That might be a stretch, but price pretty much trading within 6%, and the expansion after that move was still something like 11, 14, depending on kind of what you're calling a higher low, lower high there. So as I look at price kind of consolidating here for the past couple of days, we get the condition that I want, which is price reclaiming 96.50. I'm long. I still like longs, right? We get that. I'm wrong below here, and we consolidated for such a while. I just don't think that the move ends at kind of a 4 or 5%. I think it's more likely that now that we've actually made this move, we actually do still make it to 10.9 to 11K. And since it's the third test within 14 days, this is kind of a smaller time frame version. The exact same way that I think this level gets taken out and we do move higher, I also think that there's actually a pretty good chance if we make it up here, right? I don't want to get way too far ahead of this and people start saying, well, Luke said it's going to go to 13K. If we make it up to this level, right, I think that the chance we actually break through on now the third attempt, right, 1, 2, 3, is actually quite high. I just would like that. We'd finally have momentum moving up in the range. Price lost the range once or twice, reclaimed it both times, has made it through some pretty significant news events, really never selling off on any of them. And to me, that would just be a serious sign of strength, right? Attacking that exact same level for the first time in 2 weeks. I don't think it's any more complex than that. So that's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin, right? So far, it's been a nice little swing, nice little $400 swing, 3%. Even if you were very sloppy, you still caught a nice 3% this morning. And that's the outlook for Bitcoin. I think any move or retest back down into I guess 98 is probably the highest I'm a buyer, 99, 97, but I have my full position on, right? And I still want to run this to at least kind of 10.9, 10.8. That'd be excellent. A nice 15% swing or so. 10 or 11 or 15% swing. If I don't get there, right, I'm happy to be stopped out 2 or 3% below. I don't want that to be the case, but any daily close, one more time going over risk, any daily close below this level, 4-hour close would be the quicker trigger I wouldn't like. And some people use hard stops, right? Some people use daily closes. Whatever your system is, they can all work. So that's the Bitcoin outlook. I think it's quite positive. I know that people are going to continue to try to short into this rally. I think that's also, it can make sense. There's some short setups there. I just think that this level actually isn't too strong. And if price takes it out, we probably will make it to 10.9. I also think if we make it to 10.9, then the upside's quite nice. So I'm sticking with Bitcoin. Sure, there's a chance this thing comes down. I'm wrong and I get stopped out. But I like taking that risk. Just following the plan from yesterday, following the plan for the beginning of the week. We can reclaim the range. I like Bitcoin. It looks healthier. The other idea that I wanted to cover yesterday, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream, right? ADA, EOS, ETH, all these coins I expect to sell off if Bitcoin has any kind of strength, right? We've seen it over and over and over for alts. There's an example with ADA last time it happened. Here's an example for EOS last time it happened. Right? Bitcoin pauses or retraces and EOS gets a pump, and then if it can break these lows, right, it finds new lows. Now, I'm not saying that here EOS is guaranteed to start finding new lows, but it's just the thought process of zoom out on some alts, look at the 4-hour, look at the daily, look at the weekly, and you'll see, right, any of these pumps, like the ones I traded last week and we covered all last week of alts looking good, you just have, to me, it's a mindset of, okay, this is a few days or a week or whatever it is, maybe it lasts for 2 weeks, that I can swing my alt. Hopefully I get a 10, 15, 20%. I lock it in and then I wait, if they make the same lows again, they pump, sure. But as I zoom out and I look at this, it's not exactly the type of thing that's like, you know what, I'm buying and just praying we turn around here, right? It's still a high time frame downtrend. There's been no confirmation of higher lows. If you look at anything like the daily or anything, right, so far these are all just still lower high, lower low, lower low, right? So there's nothing too exciting out of the alt market. I think the Bitcoin move up puts an end, as I said yesterday, I still think it puts an end to a lot of the positive moves we've had for alts. Sure, that could change tomorrow, right? It kind of changed on a dime on Monday last week. And I said, look, guys, I think we're going to have an opportunity to swing EOS. I think we're going to have an opportunity to swing ADA and some other ones. So this can change, but for right now, I'm not changing my view. I think that alts gave an opportunity last week. I think quite a few of you guys traded that with me and caught that. If you didn't, I think that's fine too, right? Because it's not alt season. There's a little alt windows that last a few days. I think that we can capture some of them, and I think some of them won't even be worth trying to trade. So that's kind of the view on alts. I just don't even have an opinion outside of that. Macro-wise, it's just it's an uphill battle. I don't talk about shorting too much, even when I am bearish on alts, and it's because I just think that most people can kind of get blown out of the water. I really don't talk about too much margin stuff either. But just sharing my outlook on one major alt, I've kind of shared a fundamental thing happening with Tron in terms of Justin Sun potentially not being able to market the way he did or the way that he used to. I think that's overwhelmingly bearish for Tron, even if people say that he's not done marketing, whatever it is. I think it's overwhelmingly bearish, even if there's a possibility now that he has to tone it down or that he's under investigation or whatever it is, right? And I also think Tron, just from a relative standpoint, probably does look weaker than maybe any other major alt. Even if you look at ETH or EOS or whatever it is, there's still actually some meaningful support areas pretty much below where we are. I guess that one's right where we are. EOS still has a few levels where I think it'd be logical that it could move slightly lower and bounce. For Tron, it's kind of in a unique situation of, since it was so explosive, really right when it came out, especially right when it started trading on Binance, there's just not, there's a huge gap here on the weekly, on the 3-day, on anything above kind of a daily time frame. And I'm not suggesting that it's going to drop 84%, but if there's any alt that I would want to kind of be short or hedged, if I am hedging and am shorting alts, I think that Tron probably makes the best case for that. Anything above, like I said, a daily, you really can't even find a support on the chart kind of below where we are currently, right? It's kind of hanging on by a thread right in this area. Call it like 223 sats, maybe 225. It's pretty much hanging right there. So if there's one alt that I would be shorting or that I would kind of want to hedge or whatever it might be, that's the one. So I'm not making that play yet. I just kind of want to bring it up because, I think some people are always looking for a trade, whatever it might be. That's that's the only outlook I guess you could say I have on alts. Anyways, couldn't stop looking at that chart this morning. Just wanted to share it. In terms of Bitcoin, guys, this is the one trade for me of the week. If you're new and you're kind of getting used to the flow of things, you'll realize I don't take too many trades, right? Honestly, it's like maybe 5 a week on a very active week, sometimes more, maybe only a couple a week. Last week it was EOS, ETH, no Bitcoin trades, right? It looked weak. This week, closed out the EOS and ADA. And now kind of Bitcoin's back on, and this is the ideal trade, I think. So if there's another opportunity with alts, obviously I'll alert you if I see it. But right now, Bitcoin strength, those alts overwhelmingly bearish on high time frames. I don't really see a positive catalyst for them. And I still think Bitcoin actually looks quite good as long as price is still closing above 96.50, thinking it can take out this level, hoping that it can make it up here, because I also think this structure is very similar to this one. So that's the outlook for Bitcoin, right? Big news event tomorrow, FOMC rate decision. I'm not sure whether or not it'll have too much of an impact on Bitcoin, but that's what a lot of finance people are looking at. We'll see. there hasn't really been a macro event where rates get cut and Bitcoin's existed. So if that's over your head or you're not into macro, completely ignore it, but it'll be a fun news event for everyone else. Right, that's all I have, guys. A little bit, I know I rambled a little bit on the stream, but really the idea is from the very beginning, right? Bitcoin looks strong, getting back above 96.50. I think I covered very clearly why that level matters. Right now, we are currently at resistance, right? I'm not a buyer right here. I do think if we start trading above this 10.2, 10.3, then it's highly likely that we actually do make it up to 10.9, and exact same thought process is here, right? If we get above here, I think it's probably also highly likely we get there. I'm not getting ahead of it and saying, look, it's highly likely we make it to 13K or 12K. There's still quite a few resistances to get through, but there's also kind of a couple confirmation points of if we get through this resistance, right, then I think this probability goes up. If we actually get up to this resistance, right, I also think it's a high probability that we break through. We have to get there first, though. Right? So that's the trade of the week for me. Looking for the full 12, 13%, $1,300 move. Willing to risk that 2 or 3%, $200 to the downside. Right? That's all I got for Bitcoin, guys. And alts, I hate to say it, but once again, not attractive, not looking too interesting, and just not exciting on that front. All right, have a good Wednesday, guys. I will see you tomorrow, normal time, a little bit earlier, hopefully. I know these streams have been slightly late to start the week. All right, have a good day, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Peace.